All right, this is part 1 of chapter 14, men's hair cutting and styling. So today we're going to be explaining the importance of the client consultation and considering the questions that help you envision the client's desired outcome. We'll be describing anatomical features that influence hair cutting and styling and identifying the sections of the head as applied to hair cutting. We'll be identifying tapering and blending areas, defining design elements used in hair cutting and styling, defining basic terms used in hair cutting and styling, and explaining basic cutting techniques using shears, clippers, and razors. We will be identifying basic haircut styles, describing haircut finish work, describing basic styling techniques, discussing hair cutting and styling safety precautions, demonstrating basic haircuts and styling techniques. Okay, and here we go. So first, we're going to always want to start with a client consultation. So conversation between you and your client is about the client's desires and expectations. Facilitates hair and scalp analysis steps. After draping the client, you're going to begin the consultation with basic questions. Before you begin the haircut, summarize what you will be doing based on what the client has told you. And when in doubt, ask more questions for clarity. Asking questions helps you properly complete the process of envisioning. So to me, the most important part of a haircut is the consultation. You want to be clear. Don't be afraid to ask them questions or tell them that you're not quite sure you understand what they are wanting, and ask them to explain it more, ask them specific questions. Sometimes clients will just come to you and say, I don't know, just do whatever you think. And that's why it's important to know what haircuts look good on certain face shapes and certain features. And if they, it might happen that they're going to have a style in their mind that doesn't look good on them. And it is your job to try to persuade them. If it's maybe the first time they're asking you for it and you think it's going to look really bad, or it's like a kind of a outdated cut or whatever the reason is, but you don't want to hurt their feelings. So you can say, okay, I hear you, but I was thinking that this might look really good on you, and tell them, what you think would look good on them. But, sometimes people are set in their ways. Sometimes they know what they want. And if they really want it, no matter what, then just do what they want, because ultimately it's their head of hair, and you want them to be happy. So facial shapes. Facial shapes are determined by position and prominence of the facial bones. So we have an oval face shape. This is the ideal shape. We have round. The aim is to slim the face. But I'm going to go back to the oval shaped face. This is probably going to be a test question, and it very well could be on your state board written exam as a test question. You might hear a question like, what is the ideal shaped face? And it's always going to be oval. The reason it's ideal is because pretty much any style will look good on it. We have the inverted triangle. So that's over wide cheekbones and a narrow jawline. So it's kind of wider at the top and more narrow at the bottom. We have square. That's got angular features at the forehead and the jaw. Pear-shaped is the opposite of the inverted triangle. So it's narrow at the top and wide on the bottom. We have oblong. It needs to be visually shortened and its angularity softened because it's too long, so you want it to look shorter. We have diamond. It's narrow at the temples and narrow at the chin. So now we're talking about profiles. So when someone turns their head sideways, their side view is called their profile. So we have straight. That's the most balanced and proportioned. That means the forehead doesn't stick out too far, the nose doesn't stick out too far, and the chin doesn't stick out too far. It's just more straight. And then we have concave. So that's prominent at the forehead and chin. So think of like a half moon, or would that be a quarter moon? Yeah, so that's going to be a forehead and chin that sticks out more than the rest. That's concave. And then we have convex. So that recedes at the forehead and chin, meaning that the forehead kind of goes in and the chin goes in, and usually the nose would come out a little bit more. So that's convex, the opposite of concave. Then you have angular. So that's a receding forehead, but the chin is forward. So the forehead goes kind of in and the chin comes out. And then we have prominent nose shapes. That's kind of a nice way of saying a larger nose. You could have the nose could be hooked, where it kind of turns down at the bottom. It can be large, and it can be pointed. Those would all be considered prominent nose shapes. Sideburn lengths and designs. So consider the hairstyle, the facial structure and features, the natural hair growth, size, and placement of ears. So when you're considering the sideburn, you want to think about all of those that I just said. Sideburns will look short, medium, or long relative to the client's facial features and structure. Sideburns should complement the facial shape and hairstyle. And I wanted to mention to you guys on your Milady book, page 388 shows, and 389 show good examples of facial shapes. So take a look at that. And it also talks about head shapes and neck lengths, profiles. Sideburns and designs are on 391. Okay, so now we're going to talk about sections of the head form. So we have reference points. Those are the points on the head that mark areas where the surface of the head changes, or the behavior of the hair changes as a result of the surface change. So maybe where the head might stick out further on the sides, or up higher on the top, or curved somewhere. So those are called reference points. So the first reference point is called the parietal ridge, also known as the crest. Okay, so the parietal ridge is it's the side of the head where, if you were to put, let's say, a straight ruler or a pencil on the sides of the head above the ears, the point that sticks out the furthest is the parietal ridge. Okay, then we have the occipital bone. So the occipital bone protrudes at the base of the skull. You can feel in the back of the head. In the middle of the head, you're going to feel something that sticks out. And then as you go lower down towards the nape, it starts to come in. So the part that it sticks out the furthest is called the occipital bone. So sections of the head form. So the apex is also a reference point. So the apex is the highest point on the top of the head. And then we have the four corners. So they're located by crossing two diagonal lines at the apex. And you can see in the illustration where the four corners are. Okay, so now we're going to talk about tapering and blending areas. So what is tapering? Well, tapering is a gradual increasing length of hair from one point on the head to another without any lines of demarcation. Tapering areas of a cut are determined by the style: long, medium, short, close, or extra short, or faded. So this is on page 393. So it's increasing, or some people would say decreasing, depending on if you're moving up or down, the length of the hair from one point of the head to another without any lines of demarcation, such as gaps or steps or lines. The primary taping areas of a cut are determined by the style. For example, in a standard taper cut, gradual tapering occurs from the hairline through the back and side sections up to the top. In the case of a bald fade, most of the tapering takes place around the parietal ridge. Tapering with blended areas refer to the sections or levels within the haircut where transitions between the hair length occur. All right, so you guys read more about that in the book. So design elements used in hair cutting. What is the design? The design is the foundation of all artistic applications. And I want you to remember that because I think it's a test question. What is the design? It's the foundation of the haircut. Remember the word foundation goes with design, okay? What is a line? A line is a series of connected dots that result in a continuous mark. So a line is just, like it says, a series of connecting dots. There's straight and curved lines that are used in hair cutting to create design, shape, and direction. So curved lines are either concave or convex in shape. They may repeat in a wave pattern. The other three types of straight lines used in a hair cutting are horizontal, vertical, and diagonal lines. So horizontal lines are parallel to the horizon of the floor and direct the eye from one side to another. And I want you guys to pay attention. This is probably on your test too. So horizontal lines are parallel to the floor, to the horizon. Vertical lines are perpendicular to the floor, so up and down, and are described in terms of up and down. So please remember this. Horizontal cutting lines build weight. Make a note of that. Horizontal lines build weight and are used to create a one-length look and low elevation or blunt haircut designs. Vertical partings facilitate projecting the hair at a higher elevation while cutting. Like when you're doing your 90, you're using vertical lines. Vertical lines remove weight. Please remember that. Make a note of it. Vertical cutting lines remove weight within the cut and create layers. And diagonal lines. So diagonal lines have a slanted direction, let's say a 45 degree, and are used to create sloped lines within a haircut or at the perimeter to determine the design line. So when you're using diagonal lines at the perimeter, these lines are referred to as diagonal forward or diagonal back. When used in the top section of a haircut design, diagonal lines produce an increased length at one end and slopes down to a shorter length at the opposite end. Diagonal finger placement may also be used to create a stacked, layered effect on the perimeter or to blend longer layers to shorter layers within a haircut. Curved lines move in a semicircular or circular direction and can be shallow or deep. Curved lines soften a design and can be placed horizontally, vertically, or diagonally when repeated in opposite directions. They create a wave pattern. The rounded portion of a concave line curves inward, and the rounded portion of a convex line curves outward. So concave and convex lines are often used at the perimeter of the hair design in the nape or back area and around the face. Cutting the nape or back area into a rounded shape with the curve at the bottom of the design produces a convex line. Cutting the nape area in a rounded shape with a curve at the top of the design and the ends of the curve ending at the corners of the nape produces a concave line. Okay, we just talked about that. So what's a form? So the form is the outline or shape of a hairstyle. The elements of width, length, and depth create the three-dimensional shape that can vary in terms of volume, proportion, and balance. So Hairstyles should be proportionate to the client's overall body shape and the size and balance with the features of his head, face, and neck. So the form is just pretty much the outline or the shape of a hairstyle. So the form is just the shape, okay? Is it round? Is it square? Is it tapered, etc.? Proportion means it's the measures or it shows comparative relationship between two or more design elements of a form. Okay, so the proportion is the relationship between two or more design elements. These elements influence the visual proportion of one side of the head form to another. So you want to make sure like if the client has a long neck and you need to shorten the natural hairline, and the nape, if it's too high in the back of the head, the haircut will look out of proportion. So this is a kind of an example of a proportion. Okay, so you want to look out of, you don't want things to look out of proportion or disproportionate to the client's neck length in that situation and appear unbalanced. So you're trying to make everything proportioned. Now the balance though is a little different. So balance is the equal or appropriate proportion that creates symmetry and harmony in a design. So balance basically just means like one side is even with the other. Okay, so now some more design elements used in hair cutting. So space. Space in hair design is the form occupies positive space and area that surrounds it is negative space. Okay, so it's a little bit kind of interesting the way it's worded, but as it relates to art, space and design elements, space is considered either positive or negative. In hair design, the form, which is the haircut or the style, occupies positive space, and the area that surrounds it is negative space. Barbers are usually more aware of the positive space, like the hair, than the negative space. However, it is the negative space that brings the positive space into sharp focus. For example, when you face a client towards the mirror to check your work, his haircut, which is his form, occupies positive space, and the background you see in the mirror becomes the negative space, allowing you to see areas of the form that need adjusting when checking for balance and proportion. The design texture is the quality of a form's surface. So the design texture is the surface, shiny or dull, rough or smooth, straight, wavy, or curly. These conditions impact the degree to which the light reflects off the surface of the hair and therefore affects the image or form that we see. For example, wavy hair may appear to have light areas at the top of the wave and dark areas in the bottom through the wave, which may need special blending to appear more uniform in a close-cut hairstyle. Light texture, different colors reflect light differently. So some terminology that's used in hair coloring or hair cutting and styling is there's the angle. That's the space between two lines or surfaces that intersect at a given point. There's cutting against the grain to cut the hair in the opposite direction from which it grows. And there's cutting with the grain, cutting the hair in the same direction with it that it grows. And I'm just going to talk about the angle really fast. The angle is the space between two lines. Angles help to create strong, consistent foundations in the hair cutting and are used in two ways. So here's the two ways that they're used. One, angles can refer to the degree of elevation at which the hair is held for cutting. So kind of like what's in your fingers. A typical instruction, for example, would be angle the hair section at a 45-degree projection from the head. Okay, so that's like the projection. So angles could be like the projection that you're holding it from the head. And angles can also refer to the position of the fingers when cutting a section of the hair. So as in using a vertical parting, angle the fingers 45 degrees from the hairline to the occipital. Okay. And this is on page 397. So we talked about cutting across the grain. Oh, I'm sorry. No, we didn't. So cutting across the grain is the hair is cut in the direction neither with nor against. So rather than going vertically up, which would usually be against, or vertically down, which would usually be with the grain, cutting it across is just horizontal. Just like we talked about earlier, parallel with the floor, with the horizon. So cutting across is just cutting, not up, not down, but across the grain. Cutting with a circular motion may be required in whorl areas. So whorl areas, that's just another word for calic. So you need to go in a circle where the hair grows in a circle. Cross-checking, so that's parting off subsections opposite from elevation or direction at which they were cut to check precision of the cutting lines or blending. So let's say you're using vertical subsections to do the whole haircut, then you're going to cross-check it by using horizontal sections or vice versa. All right, we're going to stop there.